Our next preview features 2 seed Michigan State and 10 seed New Mexico. Uh, New Mexico took down Marquette in the 10-7 game. New Mexico, the 10 seed. Michigan State struggled a little bit in the first half, allowed Bryant to kind of hang around. Looked like for a bit, like Bryant, their athleticism, they actually like didn't look like a 15 seed for about a half, and then kind of showed what they really were in the second half. Um, Man, Cohen Carr was probably the best game I've ever seen him play for Michigan State. Honestly, I mean, his athleticism was a massive problem for Bryant. First half, he really kept them in the game. Actually, like he skied up for some rebounds and basically just as soon as he landed was in the rim for a dunk. Um, he's a freak, really. I mean, I have only seen probably a handful of guys like him, but Michigan State, like I said, ended up winning very comfortably in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like a mini version of Zion, I guess, just like the looks and like the athleticism. I mean, he's a little bit smaller, obviously, but like just like the traits and his ability to score at the rim could just kind of look like Zion. It's just super fun to watch. And against a team like Bryant that has athletes all over the floor, like I know they're an America East team, but they're one of the biggest teams in the country, and they have a bunch of freak athletes on that team. And Cohen Carr made them look like fairly unathletic for a few plays there.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of this game, Michigan State and New Mexico, one of the areas where Michigan State, obviously, they have a very deep front court and they have a lot of value on the offensive glass. But New Mexico does a pretty good job, albeit it's in the Mountain West. But they're in the top 20 in defensive rebound rate. So, Nelly Jr. Joseph, he's no slouch. I do worry about him maybe getting into some foul trouble in this one. But I think they can maybe limit Michigan State a little bit on the glass. I still think Michigan State's probably going to have the advantage there. But I think that's an area where Michigan State typically has the advantage that New Mexico may be able to neutralize it a little bit. But I still think it's going to be a bit too much.
Yeah, I think they can compete on the glass as long as Nelly Jr. Joseph is on the floor for, if he can stay on the floor for 30, 35 minutes, I think they can compete. I mean, we saw Bryant do that for at least a half, and then, it kind of started to get away from him a little bit. But my concern in this game is New Mexico's offense, especially in the half court. Michigan State is a really good transition denial defense, and New Mexico basically relies on transition to create all of its offense, and they don't have a ton of shooting on this team. They try to rely on getting to the rim, especially in the half court. Michigan State's a really good rim defense, along with they're the best 3-point defense in the country by percentage, but they're also a really good rim defense. They have a ton of front court options that they filter in and out, and those guys are never going to get in foul trouble. You can't foul those guys out, so it could be a tough day for guys like Dent and True Washington trying to get downhill in this game. Yeah, I've never really been all that high on this New Mexico team, especially on the offensive end. So I kind of think this is where the road ends for them. But I mean, they can compete defensively. They can turn over Michigan State a little bit. That's kind of the one area that you can kind of give them issues. The ball handling is a bit of a concern, especially like Fears and Akins. Kind of, they make a fair amount of mistakes, and Fiddler when he's on the floor. The one guy I can really trust is Jace Richardson. I mean, he makes good decisions. He's improved so much throughout the course of the entire season, and when you need to make a big shot, he's always there for it. So, but yeah, they can compete on the defensive end. It's just a matter of how are they going to get out in transition, and it could be through forcing turnovers. They're probably going to need like 15 points off turnovers to really have a chance in this game, but ultimately, I don't really see that happening with an Izzo coach team. So I'll back Sparty here.
Yeah, I mean, I like Michigan State to win this game. I guess one avenue outside of forcing turnovers and getting out in transition for New Mexico, I would say, is probably like if they can just force Michigan State to shoot a bunch of threes. I mean, I thought early in the first half tonight, Bryant did a decent job of like making some of these guys on Michigan State be jump shooters, like take some of these open threes that they were willing to give them, and they were clanking a bunch of them early, which allowed Bryant to stay in the game. So if New Mexico can maybe do something similar there, granted, like Michigan State can still get on the offensive glass out of that, but if New Mexico can neutralize that part of the game, Michigan State doesn't like to shoot the three, but if they can like leave them wide open, like it is just nature for these guys. Like they have too much pride where if they're wide open, like they're not going to not shoot it. They have confidence in themselves. So I would say, that is another avenue, I guess, if they're not able to turn them over, is if they can just force them into taking shots from the guys that they don't really want shooting, taking a bunch of threes, which is where they're super inefficient, right? 316th in the country in 3-point percentage. But I don't really expect it. I would say like if they were taking a bunch of those shots, Izzo would have a pretty quick hook and make sure that wasn't the case, and get guys in there who were going to play to what they want to do. So, I could maybe see it working for a few minutes, much like it did tonight for Bryant. But at the end of the day, I think that like what Michigan State does well is just going to shine through and ultimately pull away against New Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, I think New Mexico is going to try to just rely on their pressure defense a little bit too much. So I don't know if they'll be trying to force anybody to take and make threes with 5 to 10 feet of space. I think they're just going to try to really, really pressure them, try to force 15 turnovers in this game, and that's the real avenue here. But overall, I just think Sparty's going to be a little bit too much and move on, and the Mountain West is going to lose another game. They actually had some success in this tournament. What they end up with 2 wins so far,
2 wins.
And that's more than they could say last year. I think they only had 1. Oh, San Diego State had 2 last year, but they're altitude merchants. San Diego State's not, because obviously they're not playing at altitude. Everyone else is, and I mean maybe they're proving the doubters wrong this year. Maybe one of them can pick up a second win and get to the Sweet 16, but ultimately they've really underperformed, especially like the last 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna take the Mountain West team to get bounced here. Michigan State moves on to take on the winner of Iowa State and Ole Miss in the Sweet 16.